The PRovoke podcast, brought to you by PRovoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.
Hello everyone and welcome to the PRovoke Media podcast. My name is Arun Sudhaman. I'm editor-in-chief at PRovoke Media, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce today's episode in which we are talking to the 3 Young Changemaker Award recipients for 2024. The Young Changemaker Awards were launched by PRovoke Media in conjunction with Communicators in 2022 to celebrate young female communicators from underrepresented groups across North America, the UK, Europe, Asia Pacific, the Middle East, and Africa. So this is the 3rd year we're running the scheme. I'm really proud of this scheme. I feel like it still, can do much more to help change the industry, but every bit helps, I feel. And we're really lucky to be joined by the 3 Young Changemakers for 2024 today, along with Melissa Waggener Zorkin, who's the CEO of Communicators. We also have Paula Chirinos, who's Senior Account Executive at Ketchum, based in New York. We have Mei Lee, who's Senior Designer at Retroviral, coming from South Africa, and Adina James, who's Account Director at Allison in London. So welcome to all of you. And let me just start things off by asking why each of you feels that the Young Changemakers program is important. And Melissa, if I could come to you first, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Hey, Arun. So nice to be here, and thank you for your partnership, and welcome 3 Changemakers. Congratulations to all of you. I think that question about why is this program imperative is like asking the question, why is air imperative? I really believe that if the air we breathe is not more diverse, more inclusive, more representative of the world in which we live and breathe, the industry won't be alive. The industry won't be vibrant. So for me, it's the air we breathe.
Yeah, I think that puts it into perspective. Who wants to go next, Adina?
Yeah, happy to. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I want to echo everything that Melissa has just said by 1000%. I think for me, it's particularly crucial because representation is so important. I mean, if you look at this podcast today, like everybody comes from different backgrounds, different regions, different practices. It's so important to amplify the existing community that is thriving in PR and comms and give them more empowerment to do more with their careers, to better represent the communities we come from, and hopefully bridge a gap between the next generation as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to jump in. I love your perspective, Adina. I mean, to your point, I love that this program exists. I mean, by having powerhouse professionals of color spotlighted by one of our industry's leading news and awards organizations, we encourage and empower many other young, underrepresented professionals who are currently students or looking to enter the industry. Like, they can see themselves and feel like they have a chance to make the difference, to be a world changer and corporate professional. I mean, when I was a student back in 2016 to 2020, and I'm sure my fellow changemakers can relate, there really wasn't a whole lot of representation. I didn't really feel a huge change in terms of representation until 2020 when I had just graduated. So with that being said, what really kept me going was the motivation and empowerment from my mentors at the time, who were all women of color. So my hope is that, this cohort here, can give that inspiration back to upcoming generations as well.
I fully agree with you on that, Paula. I think it's been such a privilege as well to have all of my mentors have also been women of color as well, especially. And I think it doesn't just lend a voice to us and also give other people inspiration on people of color being able to have a voice on this kind of platform. It's also bringing new perspectives into the work that we do and the kind of messaging that we want to actually spread in the world. Because I think it's honestly for us as an industry to continue evolving and remain relevant, we really need to have this cohort keep inspiring the new generation. Yeah, echoing all of the others. I fully agree.
Yeah, well said, I think, from all of you. Some really kind of, yeah, some really powerful perspectives there as to why this program is important. And just to your last point, I think it is so important to inspire, keep inspiring, generations to come, and be the change, I suppose, that everyone can see. So staying on this theme, I wonder if I can ask each of the young change makers now what it means for you to be selected for this program. And I think probably related to that, I'm going to combine two of these questions into one, maybe, because I think they're actually linked. What kind of lessons and learnings are you seeking from being a young change maker? So again, whoever wants to go first, please go ahead.
I'm happy to jump in on this one. I know for me, first of all, I feel incredibly honored to be part of this program. It's in its infancy, but it's so powerful, and it has been so powerful in the short few years that it's been sort of in the works. But for me, like I said, I'm honored, but also I'm not doing this just for myself. I think I said before, but I'm doing it for the next generation of PR people. I knew I wanted to be in this industry since I was about 14 years old, which is, I think, rare. And I didn't know how to get there. I had no clue. I had no guidance in how to get there. And I think if I had, I don't know, someone that looked like me, someone that didn't look like me, kind of somewhere in the ether for me to kind of act as my North Star, I think I would have had a little bit more direction. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what PR is and isn't, and a lot of people use some of those stereotypes as their North Star within this business. But I think the reality of it's very different. And I think people of all walks of life can kind of thrive in this space. And I think it takes a few people that aren't afraid to rock the boat to make the industry a better place, a more comfortable place for us all to kind of survive, thrive, grow, change, and all of the above. So yeah, I'm so proud to be to be part of this organization and to be part of this program.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with your feelings, Adina. And from my perspective, in terms of what it means to be selected for this program, and I feel like my fellow changemakers can relate to this too. As someone who has chronic imposter syndrome, this definitely lifts me up, definitely boosts my confidence, and makes me feel as though I'm doing something right. And, something I mentioned in my Q&A was that by being selected as a change maker, I have realized that I truly belong in this industry, and I've earned my seat at the table. And I also mentioned that for many years of my life, whether it was in school or even professionally, as Adina was also saying, I felt as though I was othered, having grown up in my case, predominantly white communities, which made me feel as though I had to mask a lot of my identities growing up, whether that was my queerness, my Hispanicness, and especially my neurodivergency. But now that I've proven myself to myself, I now feel like I can embrace all of those layers that make up who I am, live my truth every day at work, and use these qualities that I inherently have as insights that can inform strategies for my clients and teams alike. And I feel that that type of empowerment can also come from engaging with this community of young change makers, of some of the most influential and knowledgeable professionals in our industry on a global level. I mean, like seriously, a global level. Everyone in this virtual room alone represents a wealth of experience and culture that you don't see every day, even with the previous Changemaker recipients. So my hope is that we keep in touch, Mei and Adina, because you ladies are so inspirational and amazing. And, we can continue to share case studies, best practices, and have these types of discussions for many years to come. And that's my hope and my commitment to this program, and for us to really continue to build a strong community as we continue to welcome the next generation of change makers in this industry.
I also second that completely as well. I think it's an extremely big deal. It's something I mentioned in my entry when I first submitted it. I didn't think it would actually be possible for me to even be considered at the time because, hey, imposter syndrome. But I think like when that email came in about, hey, you've been selected, I think it was that light bulb moment where like all of the struggles and identity crises that somehow along the way I went through, it kind of made sense because in my case, I am very much apparently Asian, and I grew up in South Africa, where majority population is actually African. And what I've noticed in the advertising landscape is that the marketing towards our audiences are always so disparate. And I think for me, what I would like to do is I'd like to uplift these voices and uplift these insights so that their voices can be heard and that the insights actually feed through into the marketing and work that we actually put out into the world. Because what's the point in putting in messaging that just doesn't resonate? And to this, I say, for all of us, your uniqueness is your superpower. And this isn't just an award. Again, it's a platform to amplify our voices and inspire others who feel like we don't really fit in. Yeah. Then in terms of lessons and learnings, there's just so much. Coming here as a first-time podcast person, to actually connecting with others on a global stage as well. I think what I'd really love to learn is kind of what I can do to help uplift these voices, and also how to better take all of these quirky ideas in my head, in other people's heads, and actually make them into works that make a difference around the world, and just being authentic and impactful. That's me.
Wow, what great comments. Melissa, I'm curious, I want to hear your view maybe. What would you say to our 3 award recipients today about this kind of notion of imposter syndrome?
I'm laughing because I still have an imposter syndrome. And Arun, I don't want to take liberties here, but perhaps sometimes you do too. I think if we're not out, really, if we're not in a place where we're out over our skis just a little bit too scary, then we're not trying really very hard. And we should always understand that we should just own that feeling. We can do it. We are enough, but it's okay to feel that way. And I still do. So thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, no, I think it's a important point. It doesn't, even an industry leader like Melissa, still suffers from imposter syndrome. I can say for sure that I do. So yeah, it's something that I think everyone is kind of familiar with. Let me ask you now, what do you think that PR industry leaders can learn from young change makers like yourselves? Because, if this industry is going to change, and it's good to hear that it is changing from each of you, but really it's about people in power, I think, understanding and recognizing the expectations and the need for change from people like yourselves. Go ahead, Melissa.
Maybe I'll just frame it up and then let really the spotlight be on the 3 who have the great ideas. We've just heard actually from each of them in a showcase how this industry can learn from them. They have said that belonging matters more than anything else to them. They have said that they'll do their best work if we actually make sure that they are represented and they have a voice at the table, and they do very important work. And we have heard that if we want to communicate to the world, and we really think the world is our audience, and we're trying to make positive action happen, that we have to actually look like the world and be like the world and have that as our organization and reflect that in our organization. So I think we've showcased, really, based on their answers, how this industry can learn so much as we try to influence positive change in the world.
Yeah, great points. Paula, do you want to add to that perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, I love this question since I feel, in our industry, sometimes not just voices of color, but also young professionals, I feel that our perspectives are, I don't want to say overlooked, but a little underestimated, to be fair. I mean, I would say to our PR industry leaders that you have here in this virtual room a group of badass young professionals of color who are happy to share our perspectives and voices to further progress across the different industries that we represent. And I always say this to my mentees who are all students of color attending college. I tell them that they have so much value as members of Gen Z and my generation. So, while technically I'm Gen Z, I identify more as a millennial, but I say that, agencies should leverage our voices more. I mean, your junior level employees are eager to contribute their knowledge and gain skills early on. So invite your junior level professionals to your new business brainstorm, even the pitches, give them speaking roles during your client meetings, have them present their insights to your full team. Because there's a wealth of knowledge there that must be tapped and empowered. Because I promise you, by proactively as leaders inviting these voices to be a part of these vital conversations, you'll see great results and you'll really get that innovative thinking that many clients and teams alike are looking for and yearning for.
I agree with you on that point, Paula. I think it's something to say that the younger generation does bring such a fresh view, and especially in a time where brands are now looking towards to humanize themselves towards their audiences. And a big part of that is learning how to speak to their audiences. Something one of my mentors always likes to say is, if your brand were a celebrity, who would they be and what would the characteristics be? And that's like a very quick nutshell into how you can really sum up a brand. And I think having the younger voices at the table, having those fresh perspectives will definitely allow us to stay relevant, reach a wider audience, and also bring more diversity into the conversation.
I love what you guys have just said, and I completely 100% further that embracing fresh perspectives is so important. But on the flip side, I think what I want to see more from sort of agency leadership and just PR leadership in general, and I might be speaking very much about British culture here, so I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this as well. But I think the industry needs to be a little less fear adverse and failure adverse. I think one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten in my career was from a manager. I was like an intern. I had no business making any decisions, but he would always look to me being like, what should I do? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm being paid nothing and you have 20 years on me. Like, I don't know the answer. And he was like, well, I don't know either. F it, let's do it anyway. Sometimes you just need to bite the bullet and go for it. Take in these fresh perspectives. They might be wrong, they might be right. And if they're right, great. If they're not, make an apology. There's very little, I guess, room for error, I think. It's all about perception. And one of my favorite actors / radio DJs here in the UK as well, Jamila, she always says that cancel culture is the antithesis of progress. And I 100% think that. You can't be afraid to rock the boat or to put your neck out there or to make a stance or to have an opinion. We all have opinions, we're all human. It's a form for learning. And I think that's where this industry thrives, when we're the most creative, when we're the most embracive is that a word? I don't know, of different opinions and attitudes. And that's when the best campaigns come to light as well, when we're not afraid to do something different.
If it's not a word, it should be perhaps. But
Let's put it in the dictionary.
yeah, no, great points from all of you. Yes, so embrace fresh perspective, different viewpoints, people, and be less risk averse. Uh, embrace the fear of failure. Yeah, it is. It can be, I think, sometimes a little overly cautious. Um, so following on from that, and this is maybe we'll test you because I'm gonna ask you what's one thing you want to change about the PR industry. But I would prefer it if you don't repeat yourself in terms of what you've just said about what PR industry leaders can learn from you. So what's one thing you'd like to change about the PR industry? Melissa, you get to answer this one as well. So
Well, again, my job here is to frame up and let the new
okay,
ideas pour in from them. So let me frame it up. I think
sure.
one thing we've not heard yet is our power as communicators, and in terms of
Mm,
what we'd like to see in the industry and change in the industry. There's this backing off of DEI, and there's this, new fear creeping in about why do this at all, and that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. And so from the standpoint of what I'd like to see more, stand up for that. And you have the chance to talk to clients, you have the chance to tell your people how important for business that this truly is, for success in the world, that being committed to DEI and having goals that you keep and measure, and even if you regress, then pick it back up and keep going. So I'd like to say be more bold around helping your clients keep in the game, keep in the DEI game, and keep going at it.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of what you just said, Melissa, because in the healthcare space, something that we've been seeing similar to DEI is kind of us having to make the business case for health equity. I mean, that's what our team specializes here at Ketchum. And I know in pharma, a lot of it is very product driven and, straight to consumer. But what we're trying to do is, it just shouldn't even be a question. What is the case for health equity? Why do we need to have these unbranded campaigns and programs that reach diverse audiences and raise awareness about the disproportionate risks that underserved communities have to many different diseases globally? I mean, it shouldn't be a question, but here we are, due to the current state of the news cycle and conversations. And to kind of also go back to what Adina was saying, about the risk adverseness among leaders and PR industry as a whole, we also see that in the healthcare industry. I mean, as some of you may know, our industry is very regulated, by the FDA, as we cannot make claims that aren't substantiated by references and studies. So we typically approach PR strategies in a more traditional sense. So my hope is that with more and more, again, diverse voices joining this profession, we can continue to move the needle and push boundaries when it comes to the ideas that we present to clients. And I think that, the young changemakers here and the many generations to come are the ones that are trying to spark that conversation. And I mean, I could see as a passionate gamer, I love video games, I would love to see more partnerships with Pharma and Blizzard, Twitch, Riot Gaming. I mean, I'd also love to work with diverse influencers who discuss topics such as neurodiversity, stigmatized kind of issues, and even the power of introvertedness and how that relates to the feeling that many patients of color feel of not being heard by their doctors. I mean, there's so many themes that can spark powerful discussions that I feel just are not being tapped into as much. And, representing the introverted community here, I feel like there's so much power in that. And we need to just not avoid the taboo, but embrace it and see what we can make of it as PR professionals and communicators. I mean, that's what I want to use my platform for. And I'm sure, my fellow change makers here can relate to that feeling as well.
If I could piggyback off the back of Paula there, I also experienced similar struggles in the FMCG sector, specifically with feminine hygiene. A lot of the clients that I work with focus a lot on their main product is feminine hygiene. And what I find is that South Africa has actually become a lot more open to speaking towards these topics and also eradicating shame and taboo around these subjects. But I also see on the other side of it, on our UK sister side, it's still very much a topic that we want to bring up, a topic that we want to eradicate shame about. But it's there again, risk averse to really trying to push the envelope there. And so that's something I'd really like the industry to try and change, like try to convince our clients to be more willing to take that leap of faith and really put out that thought-provoking messaging. And something else I'd also really love to see is bridging that gap between school and the professional workspace, because a lot of the times the new generation that we're wanting to inspire, the new generation that's coming in, one of the biggest things that they struggle with is adapting to a professional workplace environment. And as much as there's systems in place to try and help them adapt, what I think would really be a big change is seeing the willingness come from mentors. I'd really love to see more mentors just really come in there and really want to make newcomers feel welcome, help newcomers along the way, because I feel like that's something I completely missed out on when I joined. And echoing Adina, it's something extremely important to really foster in the new generation.
From my perspective, I think I wrote about this or spoke about this during the Q&A that we did a few weeks back. But I thought I think there's a really special relationship between PR and purpose. And I think if purpose isn't at the forefront of what we're doing as PR people, what are we doing? Question number one. And why are we doing it? And there's a fine line between brand promotion and brand mission. And I think it's a balancing act to get that right. And it might take a few wrong turns to get to where we need to be. But I do think that's a really important piece of the puzzle to keep at the forefront of our minds as, we grow in our careers and we initiate change and try to initiate change as much as possible through this program and through our work. We're doing a lot on the campaign side and on the behalf of our clients and the brands that we work for, but I think we'd be remiss to not also have that same level of commitment for ourselves and our colleagues, and making sure that we're fighting for equal pay, no matter what your gender or your race or whatever it is, like within the industry, that we're making sure that everybody's on a level playing field with access to senior level executives for mentorship or for promotions, and you have an ability to bring yourself, which Paula, by the way, I love the fact that you're able to bring your whole self to work. I think that speaks volumes to the team that you are and the PR professional you are. But I've heard it from many people within the industry that they can't always do that. Like, what are we doing to change who we are as a business structure, as an entity, to support it, to support our culture, to support the people within it, to make sure that we have happy colleagues, happy team members who are able to thrive in this industry, because I've seen both sides of the coin. One side ain't pretty. I'm telling you that for free. So as much as we think on behalf of the brands and the clients we work for, we need to hold the mirror up to ourselves too.
Yeah, excellent points. So I'm really hoping, we'll make sure a lot of people listen to this. Don't worry about that. And also, I think for more, each of our change makers, Paula, Mei, and Adina, has completed a Q&A on our website. And if any listeners haven't read those yet, then I strongly suggest that you do, because you will get even more good advice and thinking for free from people who, are passionate and want this industry to do better. I think, as we all do. So yeah, thank you all for being so candid and honestly so fearless in your comments. It's not just on the podcast, but even the chat is blowing up, which is good to see. Um, so Melissa, any final thoughts from you before I wrap things up?
Well, I thought you closed it perfectly. So my ad would just be, I just learned a lot right there. So yeah, again, it's always good to welcome people to this industry who are going to teach us things, who are going to give new perspectives, and who together we can actually make it stronger. So huge thanks again to you, Arun, for doing this in this platform. And then the three of you, can't wait to see you in DC.
Yeah, indeed. And that's the other point to make. If you come to our global summit, you'll get even more great thinking, not necessarily for free, but you'll get a lot of great thinking from the three young change makers here who will provide. There will be. It's the kind of advice I feel that leaders of our industry should take very seriously if they really hope to see the kind of change that we all want. So just to sum up, if I can maybe just call out a few points that were made in today's conversation. Embrace fresh perspectives and diverse voices. Be less risk averse. Help newcomers along the way. No backsliding on DEI. Keep purpose at the forefront. Keep fighting for equal pay. Take on systemic issues in business structures if required. Imposter syndrome, something that we all, I think, deal with. Your uniqueness is your superpower. I think Mei said that, which was, really, I thought, really worth hearing. And finally, I think it's one of the first comments. It was from Adina. Let's just keep rocking the boat, because I think without that, there won't be any change. So thank you all so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to seeing you all at PRovoke's Global PR Summit in Washington, D.C. at the end of October.
You've been listening to the PRovoke podcast, brought to you by PRovoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.